me just start by show of hands. How many of you like weddings? Okay. I don't agree with you. I have often joked, I'd rather go to 3 funerals than 1 wedding. That's bad, right? But listen, there is one wedding that I can't wait for. There is one wedding that I look forward to with great joy. I didn't even particularly love my own wedding, though I'm thankful for the result. Very thankful. We had a lot of disturbance at our wedding. It was, kind of characteristic of our lives. It was a little crazy. Let me just regale you with one particular issue that we faced. I had my groomsmen as family members, and these family members, I offered to them as a groomsman gift to buy them a suit. They could wear it at the wedding, and then afterwards, you have a free suit. Pretty good gift, I thought. All they had to do was go and get measured for the suit. Everything else was taken care of. One particular groomsman, one particular person did not go and get measured as he was supposed to. And I kept asking him over and over, the time is coming. Are you ready for the wedding? Have you went and have you gotten measured for your suit? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, was his response. It gets all the way up to the last week of the wedding, and I ask him, should I even ask? Did you get measured for your suit? No, I didn't, but it's okay. I have a suit. You have a suit. Okay, my wife has been very particular about the type of colors even that she would like at her wedding. You have a suit. I'm putting a lot of faith here. This person comes to our wedding intent on being in the wedding. Her colors were green and yellow. Her father wore a green tie. My groomsmen wore canary yellow ties. And one of my groomsmen showed up in a purple velvet smoking jacket. And when I saw it, I said, you can't be in my wedding with a purple velvet. Oh my goodness, what have you done? And then I hand him his yellow tie, and he says, I'm going to look like Willy Wonka. And I said, hush and put on the tie. Weddings are events that we look forward to, even with all the trouble that we had at our own wedding. I mean, here we're decades into a healthy marriage. And I'm thankful that God, even in my own ignorance, God saw fit to put me with a good woman. And even more importantly, though, for today's text, I'm thankful for what weddings represent. Because a wedding, if rightly understood, a marriage is a picture of the divine. It is a picture of Christ and the church. He, the affectionate and providing and saving bridegroom, and we, the church, his bride. Now, Jesus taught in parables during his earthly ministry. We've been going over a lot of these parables the past few weeks. Again, we'll start in Acts in August. This week we're going to be looking specifically at Matthew 22, at what's called the parable of the wedding feast. I want to be able to share with you 3 important aspects about this wedding. First of all, that the host, the king in the story, that he is oh so gracious. That even when we denied him, he came again. Secondly, I want to tell you that the host, the king, he was inclusive. Now, I don't mean what the world means by this word. I mean that every people and tribe and nation and tongue all fall under this beautiful umbrella of grace of our Lord and Creator. that every single one of us has a place in His kingdom. And let me tell you, His kingdom is going to be made up of many nations, and God will paint the new heaven and the new earth with a wide palette, expressive of His creative breadth, of His majesty, and of His love for His creation. Finally, I want to tell you that this wedding feast, that it requires a response. All the people that I did not invite to my own wedding, every single one of them, they did not show up. Some of the people that we did invite to our wedding, they did not show up. It required a response. But hear this, some of the people who came to my wedding, they were not prepared. And we'll see that as well in our text today. You see, it says there that Jesus is teaching in chapter 22, verse 1. It says that He's teaching and that He spoke to them in parables, plural. Meaning that there are teachings that are here that were in this particular time in Jesus' ministry, standing before this audience, and He's giving them many parables. And in this particular instance, Matthew sees fit to only give us this one parable in this scene that obviously was paramount and captured His heart and His mind. It says that Jesus taught in these parables, and He said in this beautiful parable, the parable of the wedding feast, it says that the kingdom of heaven may be compared to this. We've talked about how Matthew again and again goes over this theme of the kingdom of heaven. What is the importance of the kingdom of heaven? Well, you can see to a Jew who has given his life to Jesus, who is longing for the return of King David and the establishment of a new kingdom that is without end, whose gates will never be breached, and whose people are safe under the watch care of the good King. That he will be longing for this day, longing for this time of restitution and repair. And so he zeroes in on these words of Jesus. The kingdom of heaven is like this. And he says, it can be compared to a king who gave a wedding feast for his son. Now, in ancient times, the son was the head of the upcoming household. They would get a double portion of all the inheritance of the father's house. And in this instance, the father is about to show a great love for his son and what he provides for this wedding. And I will show you here. But don't miss that the picture of this wedding is of the son and of the glory of the son. And those who would seek to diminish the glory of the firstborn of the king, they're in trouble. It says that this king, he wanted to pay respect and throw a great wedding feast for his son. And so he sent for his servants, the ones who obeyed him. He said that they were to call those who were invited to the wedding feast. But listen, they would not come. They would not come. And it tells us here, it says that again, does the king owe the grace to offer to the people to come and to partake in everything that he has prepared for them? And yet when they denied him the first time, he came again because our king, he is gracious. He comes again and again and again. And not until we are cut off from the flower of life will we ultimately be cut off from him, the giver of life. He comes again and again, and so he did to these people who he valued enough to send the message to time and time again. it says that he sent them. And he said, tell those who are invited. Tell those who are invited. See, I've prepared my dinner. My oxen and my fatted calves have been slaughtered. Now, bursts of a beast of burden in ancient times were of great value. Here is a king whose wealth is so much that he doesn't just slay an ox, he slays oxen. He doesn't just slay calves, a calf, he slays calves. And he doesn't just slay oxen and calves, he slays both oxen and calves. This is a feast like people in the ancient world would not be accustomed to seeing. He says, man, look, they're already slaughtered. I've already slaughtered them. You know what this says to me? It says that this king is committed to the party. There are many people who are invited to a party, and the party is on a clock because that meat will spoil if the guests don't show up. And so the king sends again, and he says, look, I've already slaughtered the animals. He said, everything is ready. The finest details have been attended to. He says, come to the wedding feast. Come to the wedding feast. Be a guest. See what I've prepared for my son and for you. He said, but these people, they paid no attention. They paid no attention. And they went off. It says one to his farm, another to his business. This tells me about the spheres of life that detract from our vision when it is fixed upon God. You see, we are often inclined to go towards our work because for many of us, our work defines us. For others, it is our home and for the things that we've stored up for ourselves. We look at our things and what has been provided to us, and they become more important to us than the one who provided them for us. And in both instances, these people who were taking things like work that were designed by the Father, designed by the God and Creator of all to be a good thing, that we are to put ourselves to work, and they would make the good thing a blasphemous act. And they would take the providence of God, the provision and the harvest, and they would look at those things that are good things from the hand of the king. And they would say, these things are more important than the one who has called us. He says, what's more, there were others. He said the rest seized his servants and treated them shamefully and killed them. Do you know that even today, in 2026, there are people, martyrs of the faith, who are bleeding their blood out on the furthest stretches of our world? They are being put to death because of their love and obedience to the Father. And who is putting them to death? Why, it's other creations of the living God, image bearers. Many of you know the story of Jim Elliot and how he and several of his compatriots were put to death in a dry riverbank. And how this same group who had put him to death later confessed the faith that saves. And it says to me that though at the end of his life, seeing his friends put to death all around him, Jim Elliot, his blood went down to the ground and it nurtured a gospel seed because of his faithfulness, because of what he was willing to give up for his king. And I pray some of these who are persecutors of them who would be faithful servants, that they will be touched by the way we suffer for our belief, for our convictions. Now let me tell you about my King. Because when people suffer who he loves, it angers him. And we see here in verse 7, it says that the king was angry. He was angry. And those who would cause his children to stumble, to them comes wrath. Because a true and good and providing father will always be a lion before their enemies of his children. And so too was our king. It says that he was angry on behalf of the mistreated servants, and that he sent his troops, and he utterly destroyed those murderers, and he burned their cities. The very places where they would harbor their treasures, he put to fire. And then he said to his servants, "The wedding feast is ready, but those who were invited are not worthy." They are not worthy. My heart breaks, because even though I know individuals who are Jewish, who are in the brotherhood of our faith, the vast majority of Israel, even in Jesus' own time, ignored him. They were not worthy of the suffering that he suffered. And I just think the wedding feast was for them. The wedding feast was for them. People who God had a special relationship with. People who he'd walked with and led. People who he'd provided for in the wilderness. People who had seen many miracles. And so I tell you, church, our faith cannot be in the miracle. Because our faith that is placed in the miracle denies the Creator who works it. These people, they were not worthy. And so the king, he sent his servants. He said, "Go therefore to the main roads and invite to the wedding feast as many as you find." He didn't say go to the back roads, go to the neighborhoods. He said go to the major thoroughfares. These were places where people of all nations would traverse on long paths. People who had probably never heard the name of the king. And yet their servants, they went into the highways and the byways and they told them, "Look, we got a lot of room at this table. We've got a king, and man, you would not believe his wealth. We've got a king, and he loved his people, but they didn't show up. And so now there's a banquet that's prepared. Behold, the fatted calf is on the table. Come, it's for you now." And it says there that as many as you find. Who is the gospel for? It's for anyone. As many as we might find. As we go into this season, emphasizing evangelism and personal responsibility to share your faith. Here is your audience, as many as you would find. That means that no matter where someone finds themselves in life, no matter how many times they might have abused you or taken advantage of you, that you still have the one thing possible to pluck them from the fires of hell. The one thing that is a grace to them and a light in this dark world. You, my friend, have the saving gospel of Jesus Christ. And if it's not worthy of you sharing it, then why is it worthy of you holding it yourself? And so it says that these servants, they went out into the roads. They gathered all whom they could find, both bad and good. Because no one is beyond the love of the king. And it's thankfully not because of any act or anything that I have done, but because of the goodness of the king. That means there's nothing There's nothing that I could do to separate me from the grace of the King. Why? Because the grace is of him and not of me. They said, invite all the bad and the good. And they said, so the wedding hall was filled with guests. Someday, when we go on to glory, we will be in a place that is filled with people. Filled with the people of God who are reached by God's plan. And you know what God's plan is? Each and every one obedient to his purpose. Those who are given to speak his name and to glorify and serve his kingdom. And it will be filled, just as this wedding hall was filled with guests who were faithful to the response. Because our relationship with the King requires a response. I know people are caught up in this issue, but I'm here to tell you that there is a balance of sovereignty and responsibility. God is sovereign over all things. And yet in his sovereignty, he has made us responsible for our actions and ultimately responsible to receive the gift that he has provided. It says, when the king came in and surveyed the room, he looked at the guests and he saw there was a man with no wedding garment. And you go like, that's such a silly thing, a missing wedding garment. But in ancient times, in the courts of these very powerful kings, you wouldn't even have to put on your best, because when you got to the party, they would say, you're here to worship and are here to honor the king, and so therefore the king would like you to be dressed in such a fashion for his court that he is honored. And so this man likely would have been given an opportunity to put on the wedding dress. Not the ladies, the wedding dress, the wedding attire. Words matter, right? All right, and so here's the king. He spots this man from across the room, this beautiful banquet that had cost a great deal. He spots this man through the crowd, sticking out like a sore thumb. He walks through the crowd and people part for the king, and he walks straight up to this man. And what does he say to this man? He addresses him and he says, friend. Friend. And you know, I don't think the king saying this is any sort of sarcasm. I think it's genuine. I think the king had already sent and had his servants collect those that were bad and those that were good. So it wasn't according to this man's self, but according to his response to a good and faithful king. He said, friend, how did you get in here without a wedding garment? How did you get in here without a wedding garment? And it says, behold, the man was speechless. He had no response. No response to the king. And so the king said to the attendants, bind him up, hand and foot, cast him into the outer darkness. He can't be in the wedding feast. In that place, there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, he said. Let me tell you what this picture, this parable means to me. You see, we, dear brother or sister, we have been invited to a feast. We have been invited, and some of us have ignored the invitation. Some of us have received the invitation, and we come and we act as though we are a part of the ceremony. But let me tell you something. Some among us are not ready. You see, because there's a covering that we need. If I show up dressed like Elijah, I'm not fit for that place. There's a covering that I take upon myself. It is by the blood of Jesus Christ, so that when God himself looks at me, he no longer sees sinful Elijah. He no longer sees the one that has failed so many who depended on him. He no longer sees the one who has told lies and uttered hatred and murdered in his heart. He no longer sees the broken man that I am, but rather instead he sees his own son who was faithful even to a cross. Even to a cross, to die for those who, if I could just be honest, were not worthy to be guests at the wedding. And all that he asks that we do, is take on the trappings of his son. Be conformed to the image of him who was worthy to be there, to whom all the glory was there, because it was his wedding. And brother or sister, if you are a member of the body of Christ, it is your wedding. Surely you would not profane your spouse by showing up to the wedding in rags. And yet so many of us, we are not ready. We are not ready. And so I'm asking you, search your hearts. See if there be conviction of the Spirit. Are you ready? The feast is prepared. The animals have already been slain. There's a time limit. This is not an open and everlasting call. This is the day of salvation. He says, in perhaps one of the most discussed among seminary students phrases in the whole Bible, he says, many are called, but few are chosen. Many are called. Who was the call for? Go out into the highways. Good, bad, doesn't matter. Nations, doesn't matter. Skin color, doesn't matter. We want to fill this hall with people. We want the King to be honored. And those who are faithful to the call, they were chosen. They were the elect of God. And brother or sister, if you answer to this call, then you are the elect of God. You have responded and taken care of your responsibility, and God has been faithful to choose you. Both can be true. Now I tell you, this is a pretty powerful picture of the kingdom of heaven. In the ancient world, you understand there was a system of patronage. Whoever would attend your wedding, if they were people who were affluent, who were wealthy or well-known, then that added to the glory of your wedding. We recently had a large wedding in Madison Square Garden. And the guest list was a who's who of our country. And this, even in our own time, serves to elevate the bride and groom. But here is the power of our King. When the dregs, because that's what I am, when the dregs come to the wedding of the King Most High, we don't bring him down. He brings us up. Dear brother or sister, today, God might be pricking your heart. I'm going to invite up Brother Brian. He's going to play a hymn of invitation. If you could just be honest with yourself. You don't have to talk to anyone else. Be honest with yourself. Do you have a relationship with the King? Or have you shown up unprepared for the feast? You notice, none of the other attendees spotted out this man, but the king who sees all. He sees the innermost depths of your heart. You see, we are worried about the affections and the opinions of men. And a lot of times, those supersede what should be our greatest concern. That we have blasphemed against the only one who truly mattered. The only one that would accept us whether we were good or bad. The only one who ever truly loved us with a depth that was undeniable. And so as Brian plays this morning, I ask you, if God is working on your heart, if you're tired of pretending, if you're tired of feeling like you're on the outside looking in, like everyone else is experiencing something that you yourself have never felt, a relationship with a living God, I invite you to Him today. As Brian plays, you come. I'll be standing in front if you need to talk.